The first thing I noticed was it was cold. The second was that everyone was laughing. I sat there at the long mahogany table in my son-in-law's parents' dining room, greasy kitchen slop dripping from my hair, down my collar, pooling in my lap, potato peels, coffee grounds, something that might have been gravy once. The bucket clattered on the hardwood floor beside my chair, and Darren stood over me with that smile, the one he wore when he thought he was being clever. "Here's the soup you asked for, Calvin," he said. More laughter. His mother Evelyn had her hand over her mouth, but her eyes were bright with delight. My son Logan sat 2 chairs down, face red, looking anywhere but at me. His hand was frozen halfway to his wine glass. He didn't laugh out loud, but he didn't say a word either. That silence cut deeper than the garbage water soaking through my good shirt. I'm 58 years old. I've driven trucks through ice storms, unloaded pallets in 100-degree heat, built a logistics company from nothing but a used semi and a willingness to work nights. My hands are scarred and calloused. My right knee sounds like gravel in a coffee can when I climb stairs. To everyone at this table, everyone except my wife Laura, I'm just the old man. The blue-collar embarrassment. The guy who doesn't belong at their fancy Christmas dinner. I reached for my napkin slowly, wiped my face. A piece of onion skin stuck to my cheek. I peeled it off. Good. They were starting to realize I wasn't reacting the way they'd expected. Laura sat beside me, her face pale with fury, but she stayed quiet. We'd learned a long time ago to communicate without words. Right now, her eyes were saying, "Let me handle this," but I shook my head slightly. This was mine. I pulled my phone from my pocket, miraculously still dry, and scrolled through my contacts. Found the number I needed. Pressed call. The table had gone completely silent now. Darren was still standing, but his smile had faded. Logan was staring at me with something that might have been fear starting to creep in. "Ms. Grayson," I said when she picked up. "Calvin Reed. Yes, I know it's Christmas. I need you to do something for me tonight." I kept my voice level, calm, professional, like I was ordering supplies, not dismantling my son's future. "The transfer documents we discussed last week, the company shares, the house down payment, all of it." I paused, let that hang in the air. "Cancel it. All of it. I want everything revoked by tomorrow morning." Evelyn gasped. Logan pushed his chair back so hard it squeaked against the floor. "Dad," he started. I held up one finger, still holding the phone to my ear, still covered in their garbage, still calm. "Yes, I'm sure," I told Ms. Grayson. "Complete revocation. I'll be in your office first thing tomorrow to sign whatever you need. Thank you. Merry Christmas." I ended the call and set the phone on the table. Looked up at Darren, who had gone from smug to confused in about 30 seconds. Then at Logan, who looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Then at Evelyn, whose face had gone from amused to horrified. "That was my lawyer," I said quietly. "The $1 million gift is canceled." Logan's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. I stood up slowly. Slop ran down my pants, dripped onto their expensive rug. I didn't apologize. I took Laura's hand, and we walked toward the door. Behind us, someone, I think it was Evelyn, said, "Wait, you can't just—" I kept walking. Laura grabbed our coats from the rack. She was trembling, but not from fear. From rage held barely in check. "Calvin!" Logan's voice now, desperate. "Dad, wait, it was just a joke." I stopped at the door, turned back to look at him. My son, 29 years old, middle management in my company by grace, not by merit, standing there in his expensive suit, bought with the company credit card I'd given him, living in the condo I'd co-signed for, driving the car that was under my insurance. "A joke," I repeated. "We didn't mean—" Darren started. "You poured garbage on my head," I said. My voice was still quiet, but something in it made them both step back. "At Christmas dinner, in front of your family. And you all laughed. It was just, Logan tried again. I heard you, I cut him off. I'm just making sure I understand. You thought it would be funny to humiliate me, to humiliate your father, to treat me like trash. Laura squeezed my hand. Time to go. You have no idea what you just threw away, I said. Then we left. The cold December air hit us as we stepped outside. I heard shouting behind us, but I didn't look back. Laura walked beside me to our truck, an older Ford F-250, nothing fancy, but paid off and reliable. She opened her door, then paused. Calvin, she said. I know. They're going to. I know. She studied my face in the porch light spilling across the driveway. After 34 years of marriage, she knew me better than I knew myself sometimes. You're not going to let this go, she said. It wasn't a question. No, I said. I'm not. She nodded once. Got in the truck. I stood there another moment, looking back at the house. Through the window, I could see shadows moving, people gesturing frantically. Logan's silhouette, Darren's, Evelyn's, probably trying to figure out if I was serious, probably planning how to smooth this over, how to get me back on track with signing over my company, my house, my life savings. They thought I was weak, thought I was just a tired old man who would take whatever they dished out because I loved my son, because family was family. They thought wrong. I got in the truck and started the engine. Laura was already on her phone texting someone, probably her sister, who'd been warning us about Darren for months, warning us that Logan was changing, becoming someone we didn't recognize. Take the long way home, Laura said without looking up from her phone. I need time to think. I pulled out of the driveway and headed down the quiet suburban street. Christmas lights blinked on houses we passed. Inflatable Santas and reindeer stood in yards. Normal families having normal holidays, nobody pouring slop on anybody. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. Logan calling. I let it ring. It buzzed again and again. Then a text. Dad, please call me. We need to talk. Another buzz. Darren this time. Mr. Reed, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I silenced the phone. Laura lowered hers and looked at me. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I said slowly, that I spent the last 6 months working with Ms. Grayson to set up the most generous gift I could manage. 51% of the company shares, down payment on Logan's dream house, trust fund for any grandkids they might have someday. Everything liquidated and organized and ready to transfer next week. I know, she said softly. I'm thinking, I continued, that I did all that because he's my son. Because I wanted him to have security, because I thought he'd earned it. And now? Now I'm thinking about all the little comments, all the times he looked embarrassed when I showed up at his condo in my work clothes, all the times Darren made jokes about my truck or my accent or my hands, all the family dinners where Evelyn smiled to my face and whispered to her friends behind my back. I took a turn onto the highway, heading toward the industrial side of town where our neighborhood was. The houses got smaller here. The yards got bigger. These were the streets I'd grown up on, the streets where people worked with their hands and didn't apologize for it. I'm thinking, I said, that I've been a fool, and I'm done being a fool. Laura was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, What did Ms. Grayson say when you called? She said she could have everything ready for me to sign tomorrow. Complete revocation of all pending transfers. She'd already drawn up the documents just in case. Just in case? She's been my lawyer for 15 years. She knows me. When I called last week to finalize everything, she heard something in my voice. She drew up both sets of papers, one to complete the transfer, one to cancel it. Laura smiled, but there was no humor in it. Smart woman. The smartest. My phone buzzed again. More calls, more texts. I ignored them all. We drove in silence for a while, past strip malls and gas stations and the closed-down factory where I'd worked my first real job at 17. The city had changed over the years. But these streets remained the same. Working class, honest, real. "They're going to try to fix this," Laura said finally. "I know. They're going to apologize, say it was just a stupid prank, say they didn't mean anything by it." "I know." "And?" I pulled into our driveway. Our house was small, just a 3-bedroom ranch, but it was ours, paid off 10 years ago. The yard was tidy, the roof was new, everything was maintained, everything worked. It wasn't fancy, but it was home. "And I'm going to let them try," I said. "I'm going to listen. I'm going to nod. I'm going to act like maybe they're getting through to me." Laura looked at me, understanding dawning. "But you're not going to change your mind." "No," I said. "I'm not. Because while they're trying to smooth things over, I'm going to be finding out exactly how deep this goes. I'm going to find out what they really think of me, what they really planned. Calvin, I'm going to find out the truth, Laura, all of it, and then I'm going to make sure they understand exactly what it cost them to pour that bucket of slop on my head." We sat there in the truck, engine ticking as it cooled. Christmas lights twinkled on our neighbor's house. Inside, through our front window, I could see our little tree, decorated with ornaments collected over decades, some handmade by Logan when he was a kid, back when he still looked at me like I was a hero instead of an embarrassment. "I need to know something," Laura said quietly. "How far are you willing to go?" I thought about that. About my son, who I'd held as a baby, taught to ride a bike, put through college. About the man he'd become, or the man Darren and Evelyn had shaped him into. About the bucket of slop. About the laughter. About 30 years of sacrifices they thought were worthless. "As far as it takes," I said. "But I'm not putting him in jail. This isn't about revenge through the legal system. This is about making sure he learns what he threw away." Laura nodded slowly. Then she reached over and took my hand. "Okay," she said. "Then let's go inside and make a plan." We got out of the truck. I was still covered in garbage, still smelled like a dumpster, but I felt clearer than I had in months, maybe years, like something had clicked into place. Inside, Laura headed straight for the kitchen while I went to shower. The hot water ran brown for the first minute, washing away potato peels and coffee grounds and the last of my illusions about my son. When I came out, dressed in clean clothes, Laura had coffee waiting and her laptop open on the kitchen table. She'd also pulled out a file folder, the one Ms. Grayson had given us last month, outlining all the transfer details. "Look at this," she said, turning the laptop toward me. It was her phone screen, mirrored to the computer. She'd opened a group chat called Holiday Planning. The participants were Logan, Darren, and Evelyn. My stomach dropped as I read. Darren, "Should we really do the soup thing tomorrow?" Logan, "Dad's been worse lately. Maybe wait." Evelyn, "No, it's perfect. He needs to understand his place. You two have been too soft." Darren, "What if he makes a scene?" Evelyn, "Let him. Everyone will see what he really is. Then he'll be embarrassed enough to just sign everything over and retire quietly." Logan, "I guess you're right. The messages went back weeks. Plans for the prank. Discussions about how to pressure me. Evelyn's constant comments about my clothes, my truck, my grammar. Darren's suggestions about how to manage the old man. And Logan, my son, agreeing with all of it. Sometimes hesitating, but always going along. I read through it all twice. My coffee went cold. "When did you get this?" I asked. Logan's wife, his husband, Darren, added me to a different group chat by accident last month, then removed me. But I'd already set up forwarding. I've been seeing everything. "Why didn't you tell me?" I wanted to believe it wasn't as bad as it looked. I kept hoping Logan would push back more, that he'd defend you. She paused. "But tonight, when that bucket came down, you knew it was coming." "I knew something was. I didn't know it would be that cruel." I looked at the messages again, felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. "They planned it," I said. They sat around planning how to humiliate me, how to break me down so I'd just hand everything over. Yes. And Logan went along with it. Yes. I closed the laptop, stood up, walked to the window and looked out at our quiet street. A few houses still had lights on, most were dark, normal people sleeping after normal Christmas dinners. Tomorrow they'll come here, I said. Logan will apologize, Darren will smile and say it got out of hand. They'll promise it won't happen again. They'll try to get me to change my mind about the transfers. What will you do? I turned to look at her. My wife, my partner, the only person in this whole mess who'd never made me feel like less than I was. I'm going to lie to them, I said. I'm going to act like I'm considering it. Like maybe I overreacted. And while they think they're winning me back, I'm going to find out everything. Every plan they have, every scheme, every betrayal. And then I'm going to take it all apart, piece by piece, until they understand exactly what they lost. Laura studied me for a long moment, then she stood, came over, took my hands. I'm with you, she said. Whatever you need. Even if it means losing Logan. We already lost Logan, she said quietly. He just hasn't realized it yet. We stood there in our kitchen, holding hands, while outside the night grew darker and colder. My phone buzzed on the counter. More calls, more texts, more desperate attempts to fix what they'd broken. But they hadn't broken me. They'd just stripped away the part that cared about being nice, about playing the good father, about pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. You know, I said, there's a quote I read once. Something about how you can't kick a man when he's down if he knows how to get back up. I don't think that's how the quote goes, Laura said. Close enough. I squeezed her hands. They're going to learn something about kicking old men. They always kick back. That's definitely not a real quote. It is now. She laughed, actually laughed, and some of the tension broke, but only some. The rest settled in for the long haul, because this wasn't going to be quick. This wasn't going to be simple, but it was going to be thorough. They wanted the old man out of the way. Fine. Let them think they were getting what they wanted. Right up until the moment they realized they'd been standing on ground I owned all along, and I'd just started kicking out the supports. Get some sleep, Laura said. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. But I didn't sleep much that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Logan as a kid. The way he used to wait by the window for me to come home from long hauls. The way he'd run out to meet me, wanting to hear stories about the road. The way he'd told his friends his dad was a truck driver, like it was the coolest job in the world. When had that changed? When had I become something to hide, someone to manage? I didn't know. Maybe it didn't matter. What mattered was that tomorrow, they'd come here thinking they could fix this, thinking they could smile and apologize and get their money back. They had no idea at all. I rolled over and closed my eyes. Somewhere out there, Logan was probably panicking. Darren was probably spinning stories. Evelyn was probably calling her lawyer friends, asking if I could really cancel gifts I'd promised. Let them worry. Let them scramble. I'd spent 30 years building something real, something solid, and in one night, at one dinner, they'd shown me exactly how little they valued it, how little they valued me. So now they'd learn what happens when you underestimate the foundation you're standing on, when you mistake patience for weakness, when you think the old man is done just because he's tired. They'd learn, one way or another. I finally drifted off around 3 a.m, and my last thought before sleep took me was simple. You wanted to see what I'd do when I was done being nice? Congratulations, you're about to find out. Before we continue, hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We'd love to get to know our audience better. Logan's car pulled into our driveway at 8:30 the next morning. I watched through the kitchen window as he got out, alone. No Darren. Smart move, probably. Come alone, play the son card, try to work the guilt angle. I'd been up since 5, making coffee, reviewing documents Ms. Grayson had emailed me overnight. Laura sat across from me at the table, and we'd gone over everything twice. The company bylaws, the asset lists, the loan agreements, every piece of paper that showed what was really mine and what Logan just thought he had access to. Turned out, it was more than I'd remembered. A lot more. He looks nervous, Laura said, watching Logan approach the front door. Good. The doorbell rang. I didn't move. Laura raised an eyebrow. You're really going to make him wait? He made me sit in garbage while people laughed. He can stand on the porch for 30 seconds. I counted to 30. Then stood, walked slowly to the door, and opened it. Logan looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed, wearing yesterday's clothes. Like he hadn't slept at all. Like maybe he'd spent the night arguing with Darren, realizing exactly how much money I'd just pulled out from under them. Dad, he said, can we talk? I stepped aside, let him in. He walked past me into the living room where he'd grown up, where we'd spent 1,000 normal evenings watching TV or doing homework or just existing as a family. Before Darren, before the shame set in. Coffee? Laura asked from the kitchen doorway. No, thank you. Logan's voice was hoarse. He sat on the couch without being invited, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. Dad, I'm so sorry. Last night was... It was stupid. It was wrong. I don't know what we were thinking. I sat in my recliner across from him, said nothing. It was supposed to be a joke, Logan continued. Just a dumb prank. We didn't mean for it to go that far. Darren gets carried away sometimes. His mom eggs him on. I should have stopped it. Still nothing from me. Laura came in with her own coffee, sat on the arm of my chair. United front. Logan looked up at me, and I could see real fear in his eyes now. Please, Dad, don't cancel the transfer. We've been planning. We need that money. The house, the business expansion, everything. It's all set up. I know what you need it for, I said quietly. I'm the one who set it all up, remember? Right. Yes. Exactly. He leaned forward, desperate. So you understand. You know how important this is? How much work we've put into the plans? Plans for what? He blinked. What do you mean? What plans have you been making, Logan? With my money, with my company. What exactly are you planning to do? We're expanding, growing the business. You know that. I know you've been talking to clients about a new logistics venture. I know you've been promising people things. I'm asking what that has to do with my company. Logan's face went pale. How do you answer the question? He swallowed hard. We were going to... It's a sister company, a complementary business. It would work alongside yours, handle the higher-end contracts, the bigger clients. It's a good opportunity, Dad. A smart business move. Using my client base. Using our connections, yes, but it's separate, independent. Except you need my money to start it. As an investment. You'd get returns. We'd structure it properly. I let that sit for a moment. Watched him squirm. Then I said, Show me the business plan. What? The business plan. The projections. The client contracts. If this is such a smart investment, you'll have documentation. Show me. Logan's mouth opened and closed. I don't have it with me. Email it. It's not. It's still in development. We're still working on the details. But you've already been promising people things. Already been using my company's name to generate interest. No, He stopped. Realized he'd been caught. Dad, please, just let me explain properly. Can we meet this week? I'll bring all the documents, show you everything. But please don't cancel the transfer. At least not until you've seen the full plan. I stood up slowly, walked to the window. Outside, a neighbor was taking down Christmas decorations. Back to normal life. Back to reality. "Here's what's going to happen," I said without turning around. "I'm going to my lawyer's office this morning to sign some papers. What I sign depends on what I decide between now and then. Dad, you're going to go home. You're going to gather every piece of documentation about this sister company, every email, every contract, every promise you've made. You're going to bring it to my office tomorrow morning at 9 sharp. Okay? Yes, I can do that. And Logan?" I turned to look at him. "Don't lie to me again about anything, because if I find out you've hidden even one detail, lied about even one conversation, this isn't a canceled transfer. It's a terminated employment." He went even paler. "You wouldn't try me." He stood up quickly, nearly stumbling. "Okay, tomorrow, 9 a.m. I'll have everything. Thank you, Dad. Thank you so much. You won't regret this." I didn't respond, just watched him hurry to the door. He paused there, like he wanted to say something else, then thought better of it, and left. Through the window, I watched him get in his car and pull away fast, probably already calling Darren to report that the old man was softening. They still had a chance. "You're not really considering it," Laura said. It wasn't a question. "No," I said. "But I need to see what they're planning. I need proof." "You think it's worse than we know?" "I think the group chat you showed me is just the surface. I think they've been planning this for months, maybe longer. And I think tomorrow morning, Logan's going to bring me just enough truth to be convincing, mixed with just enough lies to keep me from seeing the whole picture." "So what's the real plan?" I pulled out my phone, opened my email, and showed her the message from Ms. Grayson I'd received at 6 a.m. "Documents ready. We'll file at 5 p.m. today unless you instruct otherwise." "Gee, she's giving me until 5 o'clock, I said. "That's when the cancellation becomes official and filed with the state. Before that, I can still change my mind." "But you won't." "But I need Logan to think I might. I need him relaxed, confident, willing to show me things he wouldn't show me if he thought it was already over." Laura smiled, but it was a cold smile. "You're enjoying this?" "No," I said honestly. "I'm not. This is my son. But if he's going to betray me, I'm damn well going to know every detail before I pull the trigger." We spent the rest of the morning at the kitchen table going through the documentation Ms. Grayson had sent. It was comprehensive, bordering on frightening. She'd been thorough. Every asset in my name, every loan co-signed, every company share, every property deed, every vehicle title. All of it laid out in neat rows in a spreadsheet that showed exactly what Logan thought he had access to versus what he actually controlled. The answer was nothing. He controlled nothing. The company shares were in my name, with Laura as secondary. The house we'd promised as a down payment was actually a property I owned, currently rented out, that I'd planned to sell and gift them the proceeds. The trust fund was structured with me as sole trustee, able to dissolve it at any time before distribution. Logan had built his entire future on promises and assumptions, not contracts, not ownership, just the belief that his father would eventually hand it all over because that's what fathers did. "This is going to destroy him," Laura said quietly. "He destroyed himself when he poured that bucket." "Calvin." "No." I looked at her. "I know what you're going to say. That he's our son, that we should try to understand, that maybe Darren's the real problem and Logan's just caught up in it. But Laura, he made a choice last night. He chose to humiliate me. He chose to laugh while I sat there covered in garbage. He chose his husband and his mother-in-law's opinions over basic human decency." "I know. So now he gets to live with that choice, and I get to make sure he understands exactly what it cost him." She didn't argue, just nodded and went back to the documents. At 3 o'clock, my phone rang. Darren. I let it go to voicemail. He left a long message, his smooth voice full of false contrition and practiced sincerity. "Mr. Reed, I want to apologize personally for last night. It was completely inappropriate and I feel terrible. I hope you can forgive me. I also hope you'll reconsider the cancellation. Logan is really stressed, and I hate seeing him like this. We value you so much, we really do. Please call me back. I deleted it without responding. At 4 o'clock, Evelyn called. I didn't answer that one either. Her message was shorter, icier. Calvin, we need to discuss what happened. This overreaction is affecting the entire family. Call me. Overreaction. Right. At 4:30, I called Ms. Grayson. Calvin, she answered immediately. Have you decided? File it, I said. All of it. Complete revocation, and send me copies of everything by email tonight. You're sure? I'm sure. There was a pause. Then she said, Calvin, I have to ask, is this about more than the dinner? It's about everything, I said. It's about a pattern I've been too blind to see. But yes, the dinner was the final straw. All right, I'll file within the hour. The documents will be time-stamped and submitted to the state registry. By tomorrow morning, it will be official and irrevocable. Thank you. One more thing, she said. I did some preliminary research on this sister company Logan's been discussing. It's already registered. Business license filed 3 months ago. My hand tightened on the phone. What? Reed Logistics Solutions, LLC. Filed in October. Officers listed are Logan Reed and Darren Cole. The interesting part is the business description. It lists services identical to your company's, targeting the same market sector. They're planning to compete with me. It appears so. Or possibly to absorb your company into theirs once they had controlling interest. The documentation suggests they've already approached several of your major clients. I closed my eyes. Of course they had. Of course. Do you want me to pursue this legally? Ms. Grayson asked. There may be non-compete violations, breach of fiduciary duty. Not yet, I said. Right now, just file the cancellation. I'll handle the rest. Calvin, if they're actively working to undermine your business, I said I'll handle it. Another pause. All right, but be careful. If they're willing to go this far, they may react badly when they realize the money's gone. Let them react, I said, and ended the call. Laura was watching me from the couch. How bad? They registered a competing company 3 months ago. Same services, same market, same everything. They've been planning this since before the summer. She absorbed that. So the gift wasn't a gift to them. It was startup capital for their company. Capital they planned to get by squeezing me out of my own business. Jesus, Calvin. Yeah. My phone buzzed with an email notification. Ms. Grayson, filed, official as of 4:47 p.m. Attached are certified copies. I opened the attachments. Page after page of legal documentation, all stamped and signed and absolutely final. Every gift revoked, every transfer canceled, every promise voided. And tomorrow morning, Logan would walk into my office with his carefully prepared lies and his half-true business plan, thinking he still had a chance to get the old man's money. I forwarded the email to Laura. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. What are you going to do? I'm going to let him pitch me. I'm going to act interested. I'm going to ask good questions and take notes and make him think he's winning me over. And then I'm going to ask him about Reed Logistics Solutions. And I'm going to watch his face when he realizes I already know. Laura came over and wrapped her arms around me. We stood like that for a long time in our small living room, in our paid-off house, in the neighborhood where we'd raised our son. I'm sorry, she said quietly. For what? That it came to this, that our son turned into someone we don't recognize. He made his choices, I said, but my voice cracked a little on the last word and she held me tighter. Because here's the thing they never tell you about revenge. It doesn't actually make you feel better. It doesn't erase the hurt or the betrayal. It just gives you something to do with the anger. Something to focus on, besides the fact that your kid looked at you covered in garbage and didn't feel anything but contempt. But I was committed now. The papers were filed. Tomorrow Logan would realize his future had been canceled while he was sleeping. And the day after that, And the week after that, I'd start taking apart every assumption, every plan, every dream he'd built on the foundation of my expected weakness. They wanted the old man out of the way? Fine. By learning when to bend and when to break, and by remembering every single slight, every insult, every moment of being underestimated. Let's order pizza, I said. Laura pulled back, surprised. What? Pizza, extra cheese, breadsticks, the works. Let's have a nice quiet evening at home, because tomorrow everything changes. She studied my face, then nodded. Pizza it is. We ordered from the place down the street, the one we'd been going to for 20 years. Sat on the couch eating from paper plates, watching some mindless show on TV. Normal, domestic, calm, but under the calm was something else. Something cold and patient and absolutely determined. Tomorrow, Logan would bring his documents. Tomorrow, I'd see exactly how deep the betrayal went. And tomorrow, he'd start learning what it really cost to treat your father like trash. They thought they'd been clever, thought they'd been subtle, thought the old trucker was too dumb to see the signs. They were about to find out how wrong they were, and I was about to show them that there's nothing more dangerous than an underestimated man who finally decides he's done playing nice. I took another bite of pizza and smiled. Tomorrow was going to be educational, for all of us. The Logistics Expo was Tuesday. I'd been planning to skip it. Big industry event at the Civic Center, lots of vendors and clients and networking, the kind of thing Logan usually handled for the company. But then Mike told me that Reed Logistics Solutions had a booth registered, and I changed my mind. I wanted to see what they'd try. Laura came with me, wearing her best business outfit, hair done, looking professional and intimidating. We drove to the Civic Center in my truck, parking it right up front among the BMWs and Mercedes like we belonged there. You sure about this? Laura asked as we walked in. Nope, but I'm doing it anyway. The expo hall was packed, hundreds of people, dozens of booths, the buzz of business being conducted. I spotted Logan and Darren's booth immediately, tucked in a back corner but professionally set up with banners and brochures and all the trappings of a real company. Except it wasn't real. It was smoke and mirrors built on stolen information and promises they couldn't keep. We walked the floor, stopping at various booths, chatting with people I knew from years in the industry. Word had already spread about the break-in and the arrest. People kept giving me sympathetic looks and asking careful questions about how I was doing. I kept my responses professional and neutral. Then I saw them across the hall. Logan in his expensive suit, looking exhausted and desperate. Darren beside him, out on bail, trying to look confident, but failing. They were talking to a potential client, some guy in khakis and a polo shirt who looked skeptical. I watched for a minute, saw Logan gesturing enthusiastically, probably making promises about services and rates. Saw the client shaking his head, saying something that made Logan's face fall. Saw Darren jump in, trying to salvage it, only to have the client walk away. Good. We made our way through the hall, and I made sure to stop at every booth near theirs. Made sure people saw me, heard my voice, remembered that I was still here, still running my business, still the reliable option they'd worked with for years. Around 11, I finally walked over to their booth. Logan saw me coming and went pale. Darren straightened up, defensive posture, like he was ready for a fight. "Gentlemen," I said pleasantly, "nice booth." "Dad, what are you doing here?" Logan's voice was strained. "Same thing as everyone else. Business." I picked up one of their brochures, looked it over. Reed Logistics Solutions. Catchy name. Almost sounds legitimate. "We're completely legitimate," Darren started. "Except for the part where you built the whole thing on stolen client lists and embezzled funds. But sure, other than that, very legitimate." Logan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Dad, please. Not here. Not in public." "Why not? You weren't worried about public humiliation when you dumped garbage on me at Christmas dinner." A few people at nearby booths were starting to notice, starting to listen. That was different. Logan tried. Was it? Because I'm just doing what you did, making sure everyone sees the truth. The truth is you're thieves. You stole from me, lied to clients, broke into my property, and now you're here pretending to be legitimate businessmen. That's defamation, Darren said. Defamation requires it to be false. Everything I just said is documented fact. There are police reports, court filings, evidence. More people were watching now. This was bad for them. Very bad. But I didn't care. Logan grabbed my arm. Dad, stop, please. You're destroying everything we've worked for. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then up at his face. Good. I shook him off and turned to the small crowd that had gathered. For anyone wondering, Reed Logistics Solutions is under investigation for fraud and theft of proprietary information. Their principal, Darren Cole, is currently out on bail for breaking and entering. I'd strongly recommend verifying any claims they make before signing contracts. Watch your mouth. Your mother raised you better than that. He took a step toward me, and for a second I thought he might actually swing. But Darren grabbed him, pulled him back. This isn't over, Darren said. You're right, it's not. Because this afternoon my lawyer is filing formal complaints with the Better Business Bureau and the State Licensing Board about your fraudulent business practices. By tomorrow, everyone in this industry will know exactly what you are. I left their booth and walked away, Laura beside me. Behind us, I heard Logan's voice, cracking. Dad, wait. But I didn't wait, didn't look back, just kept walking. Laura was quiet until we got to the truck. Then she said, that was brutal. That was necessary. You just destroyed any chance they had of salvaging that business. Yes, I did. She looked at me carefully. How do you feel about it? I thought about that, about Logan's desperate face, about the crowd watching, about the rumors that would spread through the industry by end of day. I feel like I'm doing what needed to be done 6 months ago, I said, before it got this far. We drove home in silence. I dropped Laura off and headed to the warehouse. Had some paperwork to catch up on, some calls to make, normal business operations, the kind of routine that kept a company running while drama exploded around it. Mike met me at the door, looking tense. Boss, we got a situation. What now? Logan's here. He's in the parking lot. Been sitting out there for about 20 minutes. I told him to leave, but he says he needs to talk to you. I looked past Mike to the parking lot. Sure enough, Logan's BMW was parked in the corner, engine off. I could see him in the driver's seat, just sitting there. You want me to call the cops? Mike asked. No, I'll handle it. I walked out to the parking lot. The November afternoon was cold, gray clouds promising rain. Logan saw me coming and got out of his car, leaning against it like he needed the support. Hey, Dad. Logan. Can we talk? We just talked at the expo. Didn't go well, as I recall. I mean, really talk. Not in public. Not like that. I looked at him. He looked worse up close. Unshaven, rumpled clothes, dark circles under his eyes, like he hadn't slept in days. 5 minutes, I said, but not in my office. Right here. He nodded, glanced around the empty parking lot. Look, I know you're angry. I know we screwed up. But what you did today at the expo, that was too far. Too far? You destroyed our credibility. We had 3 potential contracts in the works. They all canceled within an hour of your little speech. We're done. The business is finished. Good. Dad, we put everything into this. We've got debt, obligations, people counting on us. People counting on you to deliver services you built using stolen information. They should count on someone honest instead. Logan's hands clenched into fists. You just can't accept that I wanted something of my own, that I didn't want to be your shadow forever. You think this is about you wanting independence? Logan, if you'd come to me honestly and said you wanted to start your own company, wanted to go a different direction, I would have helped you. I would have given you advice, connections, maybe even invested. But you didn't do that. You lied. You stole. You humiliated me and then tried to take everything I built. I was desperate. You wouldn't listen. When did you try? When did you ever sit down with me and honestly say what you wanted? Instead, you spent a year planning how to push me out, how to take over, how to make me irrelevant. You treated me like an obstacle instead of your father. Because you wouldn't understand. You've never understood that I want more than this. He gestured at the warehouse. More than loading trucks and managing shipments and living in a tiny house. There it is, I said quietly. The truth. You're ashamed of where you came from. Ashamed of me. That's not. It is. And you know what? If that's how you feel, fine. Be ashamed. But don't expect me to fund your shame. Don't expect me to hand over everything I built so you can pretend you earned it yourself. Logan's face crumpled. For a second, he looked like the kid he used to be, the one who ran to meet me after long hauls. Then the moment passed, and he was just a tired, defeated man in his late 20s who'd gambled everything and lost. What do you want from me? He asked. What do I have to do to fix this? Nothing, because you can't fix it. You made your choices. So that's it? I'm just cut off forever? You're never going to forgive me? I thought about that, about forgiveness and family and the weight of 30 years. Maybe someday, I said, but not today, not next week, not until you understand what you did and why it was wrong, not until you stop blaming me for your failures and take responsibility for your choices. That could take years. Then it takes years. He stared at me, and I saw the moment when he realized I was serious. When he understood that there was no negotiation, no compromise, no way to smooth this over with apologies and promises. You're really going to destroy us, he said. No, you destroyed yourselves. I'm just making sure you don't take me down with you. Logan got back in his car without another word, started the engine, backed out, and drove away. I watched until he turned onto the main road and disappeared. Mike came out of the warehouse. Everything okay? Define okay. Fair point. You coming back in? In a minute. I stood there in the parking lot, feeling the cold wind pick up, watching the clouds get darker. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled. Storm coming. My phone buzzed. Ms. Grayson, BBB and licensing board complaints filed. Should see public postings by tomorrow. I texted back, good, what's next? Her response came quickly. Civil suit proceeds Friday. Their lawyers are scrambling. They're going to lose. I know. Calvin, they're asking for a meeting, all parties. Try to work something out before court. No meetings. You should at least hear their offer. No. I'm done negotiating. I put the phone away and headed back inside. Had work to do. Shipments to coordinate. Clients to reassure. Normal business operations that had nothing to do with family drama or revenge or the price of betrayal. But as I walked through the warehouse, past the workers who'd seen everything and knew everything and stayed loyal anyway, I felt something shift, some weight lifting, some clarity emerging. This was never about the money or the business or even the humiliation. It was about knowing my worth, about refusing to be treated like garbage by people who thought I was weak enough to just take it. Logan wanted independence? He'd have it. Complete, total independence. From my money, my business, my safety net, everything. He'd get exactly what he claimed he wanted, the chance to succeed or fail purely on his own merits. I was betting on fail. And I was betting that when he did, he'd finally understand what he'd thrown away. Mike called out from across the warehouse. Boss, phone call on line 2, says it's important. I picked up in my office. Calvin Reed. Mr. Reed, this is Detective Morrison with the Metro Police. We're handling the break-in case at your warehouse. Yes, Detective. What can I do for you? We've completed our investigation. We have enough to proceed with charges against Darren Cole. But I wanted to give you a heads up. His lawyer is pushing back hard, claiming the break-in was a misunderstanding, that Mr. Cole believed he had permission to access the property. He had no such permission. That's what we figured. But they're going to argue it, make it messy. I wanted you to know what you're in for if we proceed to trial. Proceed. I'm not backing down. Understood. Just wanted to make sure. Trial's likely in January, assuming no plea deal. There won't be a plea deal, not from my end. All right, Mr. Reed, we'll be in touch. I hung up and made a note on my calendar. Trial, January, 3 months away. 3 months of Logan and Darren sweating, burning through money on lawyers, watching their lives fall apart. 3 months of me making sure everyone in the industry knew the score. My phone rang again. This time, it was Evelyn. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "Calvin," she said, her voice cold and clipped. "We need to talk about Logan." "No, we don't. You're being cruel and vindictive. He's your son. He's a thief. Your son-in-law is a criminal. That's not on me. This all started because of a silly prank that you blew completely out of proportion. That silly prank was assault and humiliation. The theft and fraud came later. You're destroying 2 young men's lives over your hurt feelings. No, I'm holding them accountable for their actions. There's a difference." "Calvin, please." "Evelyn, let me be very clear. I don't care what you think. I don't care what your country club friends think. I don't care about your reputation or your family's standing or any of it. Your son-in-law broke into my property. My son stole from my company. They're criminals. And I'm pressing charges. End of discussion." I hung up, blocked her number. The calls kept coming all day. Relatives, old friends, business acquaintances, everyone with an opinion about how I should handle this, how I should forgive, how I should think about my son's future. I ignored them all. By 5 p.m., I was exhausted. Not from the work, but from the constant pressure, the constant judgment, the constant suggestion that I was the bad guy here. Laura called. "How bad is it?" "Pretty bad. Everyone thinks I'm the villain." "Are you?" "Probably. But I'm okay with it." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Come home. I made dinner. We'll talk." I locked up the office and headed home. The storm had arrived, rain coming down hard, thunder rolling across the city. I drove through it slowly, carefully, thinking about villains and heroes and whether there was really any difference when you got down to it. At home, Laura had made beef stew, warm and filling and exactly what I needed. We ate in comfortable silence, just being together, not talking about Logan or Darren or any of it. After dinner, she said, "I want you to be sure about this." I am. Because once the trial happens, once this becomes public record, there's no taking it back. Logan will have a criminal record. His opportunities will be limited. He'll carry this for the rest of his life. I know. And you're okay with that? I thought about the bucket, about the laughter, about a year of planning and scheming and treating me like an obstacle to be removed. "I'm okay with it," I said, "because the alternative is letting him think he can do whatever he wants without consequences. Letting him think that family means he gets a free pass to lie and steal and humiliate. I won't do that. Not anymore." Laura reached across the table and took my hand. "Then I'm with you, whatever happens. Even if it means we lose him? We already lost him. We're just making it official." We sat like that for a while, holding hands across the kitchen table, while outside the storm raged and thunder shook the windows. Tomorrow would bring more calls, more pressure, more judgment. But tonight, in this moment, I felt something like peace. I'd drawn my line, I'd made my stand, and I wasn't backing down. Let them call me a villain. Let them say I went too far. I'd spent 30 years being the nice guy, the understanding father, the forgiving parent. Look where it got me. From now on, they could deal with the real Calvin Reed. The one who knew his worth, the one who wouldn't be pushed around, the one who'd survived 30 years of hard roads and hard choices and came out the other side knowing that sometimes the only way to win was to be willing to lose everything. I'd made my choice. They'd made theirs. Now we'd all live with the consequences. Thursday afternoon, I got the call I'd been waiting for. "Mr. Reed?" The voice was professional, cautious. This is David Park from Riverside Manufacturing. We've been a client of yours for about 15 years. I remember. What can I do for you, David? I wanted to call personally because, well, we've been approached multiple times by your son and his partner about switching to their company. They were very persistent, very aggressive. I'm aware. Right. Well, after what happened at the expo Tuesday, we did some digging, found the police reports, found the court filings, and Mr. Reed, we found something else we thought you should know about. I sat up straighter. I'm listening. They forged a letter on your company letterhead, a recommendation letter essentially suggesting that Reed Logistics was taking over certain accounts and that the transition would be handled professionally. They sent it to at least a dozen clients, us included. My jaw clenched. They forged my signature? Appears so. We only caught it because our procurement manager knows you personally and thought it sounded off. She called to verify, and obviously you knew nothing about it. No, I didn't. Can you send me a copy of that letter? Already on its way to your email. And Mr. Reed, we're pulling our preliminary agreement with them. We thought you should know that several other companies are doing the same. Word's spreading fast about what they tried to do. Thank you for letting me know, David. Of course. And Mr. Reed, for what it's worth, we're sorry you're going through this. Family stuff is never easy. I hung up and immediately opened my email. There it was, a letter on my company letterhead with my forged signature at the bottom, cheerfully explaining that Reed Logistics Solutions was the natural evolution of my business and that clients could expect seamless integration. I forwarded it to Ms. Grayson with a subject line, "Add forgery to the charges." Her response was almost instant. On it. This makes the fraud case airtight. I called Mike. Get in here, now. He appeared in my doorway 30 seconds later. What's wrong? I showed him the letter. Watched his face go from curious to angry. They forged your signature? On at least a dozen letters. Sent them to our biggest clients. That's... Jesus, boss, that's serious. That's criminal, and it's documented and provable. They're done. Mike sat down, studying the letter. You know what this means, right? They're desperate enough to commit multiple felonies. They're not going to stop. They don't have a choice. They're trapped. Business failing, criminal charges pending, no income, mounting legal bills. They're trying anything to stay afloat. Desperate people do desperate things. I know. That's why I need you to increase security, change the access codes, add cameras if we don't have enough. I want to know if they come anywhere near this property again. You think they'll try another break-in? I think they'll try something. I don't know what, but I want to be ready. Mike nodded and left to make arrangements. I sat there staring at the forged letter, feeling something cold settle in my chest. This was escalating. Fast. That evening, I went back to my rented apartment across from Logan's condo. I'd been away for a couple days, dealing with the expo and its aftermath. But now I wanted to see how they were reacting to their world collapsing. What I saw wasn't pretty. Through the window, I could see them arguing. Logan was shouting, waving his arms. Darren was trying to calm him down, failing. At one point, Logan threw something, a book maybe, that hit the wall and fell. They argued for over an hour. Finally, Logan grabbed his coat and stormed out. I watched him get in his car and drive away. Watched Darren stand at the window, alone, looking lost. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Then I remembered the forged letters, the bucket of slop, the year of planning and scheming, and the sympathy evaporated. My phone buzzed. Laura, where are you? Working. Be home late. Calvin, you need to stop sitting in that apartment. It's not healthy. I'm gathering evidence. You're obsessing. She wasn't wrong, but I wasn't stopping. Around midnight, Logan came back. He looked drunk, stumbling slightly as he got out of his car. Darren met him at the door, and they went inside together. I packed up and headed home. Laura was still awake, reading in bed. "You look terrible," she said, without looking up from her book. "Thanks." "I'm serious, Calvin. You're running yourself into the ground over this." "I'm fine." "You're not. You're obsessed. You're watching them every night, documenting their lives, building cases. When does it end?" "When they understand." "Understand what?" "What they lost, what they threw away, what they did to themselves." Laura set down her book and looked at me. "And then what? You win? You get to feel vindicated? And you're left with no son, no relationship, just the satisfaction of being right? Maybe that's enough. Is it?" I didn't answer. Didn't know how to answer. Laura sighed. "Come to bed. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll still be there." But sleep didn't come easily. I lay there thinking about the forged letters, about Logan's drunken stumble, about Darren's lost expression, about the trial coming in January that would make all of this permanent and public, about the fact that my wife might be right, that I was destroying everything to prove a point, and when it was all over, I'd have nothing left but the ashes of what used to be my family. But then I thought about the bucket, about the laughter, about them sitting around planning my downfall, and I knew I couldn't stop. Not yet. Friday morning, Ms. Grayson called. "The forgery case is moving forward. District Attorney is very interested. This isn't just civil anymore, Calvin. This is multiple counts of fraud, forgery, uttering false documents. We're talking real jail time if convicted." "How much time?" 2 to 5 years possibly. Depends on the judge and how many counts stick." "And Logan? He's involved too?" "As an accessory, yes. He'd be facing lighter charges, but still serious." I closed my eyes. 2 to 5 years. My son in prison. "Calvin? You still there?" "Yeah, I'm here." "Do you want to proceed? Because if you don't want to go this far, now's the time to say so." I thought about Logan at 29, about prison, about what that would do to him. Then I thought about the bucket of slop, about my face, covered in garbage, about everyone laughing. "Proceed," I said. "All charges, full prosecution." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." After we hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, staring at nothing. This was the point where I could still pull back, could still show mercy, could still be the bigger person. But I was done being the bigger person. Being the bigger person had gotten me a face full of garbage and a son who thought I was weak. Mike knocked on my doorframe. "Boss, you okay?" "No, but I'm committed." "To what?" "To seeing this through. Whatever it takes." Mike studied me carefully. "You know, my old man used to say that revenge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Your old man was wise. Maybe. But he also said that sometimes you gotta show people there are consequences. Otherwise, they never learn." "Which one do you think this is?" Mike shrugged. "Don't know. But I know you've been dealing with this for a long time. And I know Logan took advantage of you for months, maybe years. So whatever you decide, I'm with you." "Thanks, Mike." He left me alone. I pulled up the security footage from the break-in, watched Darren forcing open the door, searching my office. Watched the timestamp, 3:14 a.m. Watched him leave at 3:36 a.m., carrying papers he had no right to take. 22 minutes that were going to cost him 2 to 5 years. Was it worth it? Was any of this worth it? I didn't know anymore. But I'd started this and I was going to finish it. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Calvin Reed. "Mr. Reed, this is Janet Whitmore. I'm Darren Cole's attorney." "I don't think we should be talking." "Please, just 1 minute. I'm calling to propose a settlement." "I'm not interested in settling. Just hear me out. My client is willing to plead guilty to trespassing, pay restitution for any damages, perform community service, and agree to a permanent restraining order from your properties. In exchange, you drop the more serious charges." "No." "Mr. Reed, your client broke into my property, stole documents, forged my signature on multiple letters, and attempted to defraud my clients. Those are serious crimes. He should face serious consequences. He's 29 years old. A prison sentence will destroy his life. He destroyed it himself. Please, think about your son. Think about how this will affect Logan. I am thinking about Logan. I'm thinking that maybe a few years in prison will teach him that actions have consequences, something I apparently failed to teach him growing up. Mr. Reed, I'm begging you. The answer is no. Tell your client to prepare for trial. I hung up. Sat there feeling cold and hard and absolutely certain. This was the right choice. It had to be. Because if I backed down now, if I showed mercy now, what would that teach them? That they could do anything, hurt anyone, and Dad would always bail them out in the end? No, not anymore. They wanted to play adult games. They could face adult consequences. My phone buzzed. Text from Laura. Evelyn just called me. She's hysterical. Says you're ruining their lives. Says you won't listen to reason. I texted back. She's right. I won't. Calvin, I can't back down now. You know that. I know. I just want to make sure you know that. I know. See you tonight. I put the phone away and tried to focus on work, but it was impossible. My mind kept drifting to Logan, to prison, to the look on his face when he realized how far I was willing to go. Would he hate me? Probably. Did I care? I honestly didn't know anymore. All I knew was that I'd drawn a line, and I wasn't crossing back. That evening, I went back to the apartment, told myself it was the last time, that I just wanted to see how they were handling the lawyer's news. Through the window, I saw them sitting on the couch, not arguing for once, just sitting there, close together, looking defeated. Darren had his head on Logan's shoulder. Logan was staring at the wall. They looked like what they were, two young men who'd gambled everything and lost. I watched for maybe 5 minutes. Then I packed up, locked the apartment, and drove to the rental office to terminate the lease. I was done watching, done obsessing, done trying to understand. From here on out, it was just the legal process, the trial, the verdict, the consequences. I'd played my part. Now, the system would play theirs. At home, Laura was waiting. You terminated the apartment lease? How did you know? Because you're predictable. And because it was the right thing to do. That apartment was making you crazy. Maybe. No, maybe about it. You were stalking them, Calvin. It wasn't healthy. I was gathering evidence. You were torturing yourself, watching them every night, documenting their misery. What did you think you'd see? What were you hoping for? I didn't answer. Didn't know how to answer. You wanted them to suffer, Laura said quietly. And now they are. So the question is, do you feel better? Does their suffering make your hurt any less? No, I admitted. It doesn't. Then maybe it's time to let the legal system handle it and you focus on moving forward. I don't know how to move forward from this. Neither do I. But we'll figure it out. Together. She took my hand and we sat there in our living room, in the house we'd paid off, in the life we'd built, trying to figure out how to live in a world where our son was heading to prison and we were the ones who'd put him there. Do you think I'm a monster? I asked. No. I think you're hurt. I think you're angry. I think you're a father who got betrayed by his son and doesn't know how to process that. But the charges, the trial, all of it, is their fault, not yours. They made their choices. You're just refusing to shield them from the consequences. Then why do I feel like the villain? Because you're a good man who loves his son, even when that son doesn't deserve it. I pulled her close and held on tight. Tomorrow would bring more legal maneuvering, more pressure, more judgment. But tonight, I had this moment, this person who'd stood by me through everything. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough.